Hello and welcome to those that are joining us across all of the channels. I'm just waiting for everything to sync up. You are in the right place, as you can see from our presentation slide. We're going to be talking about why only some assessments can improve sales performance and predictivity. So we're going to demystify and really introduce you to the subject of sales assessments and sales surveys and how you can gather the right kind of data and what to look for, and very much based in this context. So welcome to everybody. Please make sure you give us your comments and questions. I'll open up the chat so that we can see them all. I've got to hide. So hello from myself, and I'd like to introduce my colleague, Laurie Richardson. If you're not connected with us on LinkedIn, please do connect with us. You'll see our names in the tags if anything occurs to you after this session. But Laurie and I do regular live sessions, so we would love to have your questions. So please do post them in the chat and we'll be reading them out. So Laurie, we are talking about why only some assessments can improve sales performance predictivity. And I know this is an area we're working with all the time. We come across sales leaders, and in actual fact, I was out to lunch with a sales leader yesterday, and literally all the things that they said was almost like it's coming out my mouth. The problems that sales managers and leaders are experiencing. They're stuck with a team, or they inherited a team. They spend so much time on the people that are not achieving target. She actually said perhaps only 20% of the teams, that all the sales revenue leaders that she talks to, only really 20% of the team are consistently hitting target. That I know a lot of the stats, and you've seen this, maybe 50% or so, but she says it's not, it's 20%. So we'll talk about why this is happening. So I don't know, Laurie, what your thoughts are and your experience and what's happening in the environment at the moment.
Well, first of all, it's great to be here again, Janice. Great to see you. Love your shades there. We both look very smart, I think. I am continually, hearing about things, and in our current climate, there are so many people looking for positions. There are a lot of people that contact me that are looking for sales positions, a lot of women that I talk to and men, and there are leaders that have open positions. And the problem is that it's harder. It's even harder now than it has been. It's always been hard to hire salespeople because, let's face it, I mean, I'm a salesperson at heart. I probably know what to say to get you to hire me. And that's my first sale, is the one that I do for the hiring manager and HR to engage so well that you want to hire me. And we hear sales leaders all the time saying, oh, this person's so great, we really like them. They fall in love with them without knowing whether they're really competent to be successful in the position. And that's why, a number of years ago, I looked for tools and processes to help me be able to help companies know whether someone is strong or not. Are they coachable? Do they have the will in addition to the skill? All we ever look for is skill, and we look for past performance. So we figured that, well, if you were good at our competitor, or if you were good in this other industry or in this other role in sales, you should be good here. And that's just not true. Past performance does not indicate future performance.
Absolutely. And we've heard before that there's sales, it's an art and a science, and it seems like the sales tools, the sales stack tries to apply the science on top of the art, but actually they're not often measuring the right things. And we're finding this all the time. We're actually using the wrong data in the wrong way and getting the wrong results. And it's not really understanding what we should be measuring and how we should be looking at it. And there's lots of assumptions and misperceptions about what is a good seller. And you've mentioned some of them in terms of a salesperson needs to be coachable. But actually, in the past, it wasn't something we would look for. I mean, how do you measure if someone is coachable? And because we didn't know how to measure that, we didn't actually look for it, and we didn't test for it because we didn't know we needed that. So
Right.
that's really what we're talking about, the essential, the core competencies, the essential skills that's required to be a good salesperson. And if you've got that, you've got the right science and the right measurements, and then it becomes predictive. And when you've got a sales force that is more predictable and more measurable, then you actually have sales revenue and forecasts that's more predictable and and measurable as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And, for years, there have been these personality assessments, kind of like personality tests, that people seem to think, and wrongly so, that salespeople, the top seller, it has a different personality than maybe your worst seller or the people that are just not successful in sales. And actually, personality has nothing to do with it. There are skills that we're looking for in hiring strong salespeople. And when like I was saying, when I was looking a number of years, almost 8 years ago, I was looking for a way to improve my training that I was doing for companies, because I would go in and do training with a company, and they would like it, and they said, it was customized, they liked it, people thought it was great, they got good feedback. And then I'd go back in a few weeks and I'd say, well, how much did it help your team? And, of course, we've always had trouble measuring training. And so people would say, well, I don't know. I have no idea. And what I would find out is that the sales manager would not hold people accountable. They wouldn't expect people to be, working on the training that we did. The salespeople were not always coachable. Salespeople didn't have that strong will to be successful. And it just became that old saying about putting a binder on the shelf. It was just another binder on the shelf. And bigger companies would have different ones, like every quarter or twice a year. They'd be like, what flavor of training are we going to have? And I just thought that was ridiculous, because you can convince someone to buy your training once. That's very easy, and there's lots of companies that do it. But I didn't feel very rewarded until I actually saw revenue go up, or sales cycles be shortened, or people who are not good in sales actually check out and say, this isn't for me, so that we can hire a stronger seller. So that gave way to assessments, which I never really wanted to be a part of. I didn't want to help people with candidate assessments, because it didn't seem like, it just seemed so hard to do. And actually, it's very simple and straightforward. We're looking at core sales competencies. In our world, yours and mine, there are 21 top core sales competencies that will equate to what the top sales reps do to be successful. And so we look for those, we can measure them, and through a process that we do, we can actually predict who's going to be successful and who is not going to be successful. And people who are not successful, if they're already at the company, they'll self-select out, which I love. It is such an amazing thing.
Yeah, I love that too. It's almost like helping them to relieve themselves of the stress and the cycle that they're in, but they don't have a get out clause. They have to keep going with what they know. And soon as they read their assessment, they can identify that this is me, it is a struggle, I don't need to do this anymore. And that's how they kind of often self-select themselves out. And it's one of those things that sales leaders and sales managers fear. But actually, we've discovered that it's probably one of the easiest process of having adult discussion about moving on to something, an area that is more their zone of genius. I mean, this assessment is actually fantastic in discovering where your zone of genius isn't, and also where your zone of genius is. And it almost gives you permission to go off and do that. Now you know so much more about yourself, and it's almost like this 360. I mean, I use DIS. And I still use it now, and I absolutely love this, and I love it to be able to understand not only myself from a personality, because it's not self specific, although companies do use Myers-Briggs and all of these as self specific, and they're not. And actually, in the guidance notes of these companies, they tell you do not use them in sales, for as a recruiting tool. They're adapted, but they say, they hold their hands up and say, look, we don't want to have anything to do with, do not use this for this purpose. So be careful. But the great thing about this is that it helps salespeople or anybody in a relationship role to understand the other person's perspective. And we know when we're building relationships and communicating, we often do it in our own style, but it actually helps you to understand other people's styles and adapt to other people's styles. So it's great for that, but it's not great as a recruitment tool.
It's good for your team.
Exactly. If you're a direct person, it doesn't mean you're going to be a great salesperson. If you're an introverted person, we absolutely know from our data, it doesn't mean you're going to be a great salesperson, although that's what we often recruit for because we have these old assumptions.
Yeah, I want to add too that the person I was talking to the other day who said she was on her third interview and was talking with a couple of people who would be her peers, I guess. And I said, well, what were they asking you about? And she said, oh, well, they were trying to see if I would be a good culture fit for their team. And I was like, oh no, because why do you want a culture fit? Like, don't you want someone that will challenge what you're doing now? I mean, that's how we keep things all the same, is that we see who will fit well with us without, someone that's different. It might be harder, we might have to stretch a bit. And I want to encourage hiring managers and those that are hiring to look for differences and look for new ways and new conversations and new ideas, because that's what somebody that is different that you bring onto your team is going to give you.
Yeah, absolutely. And after all of your buyers are uniquely different, aren't they? So if you don't have a team that reflects that, then you're only going to be presenting one way, or to talking to one need or problem. You're not really going to be understanding the variety of buyers and be able to communicate with them. So diversity is absolutely key. It's interesting, this thing about cultural fit, because many of our sales leaders that we talk to, and the stat that I spoke about, a good 50-80% of salespeople on the team are underperforming. Why would you want to mirror that?
Yeah, exactly. We want more of those people.
Yeah, we do. We want more failures.
Yeah.
That's nuts, isn't it, really? But it's just, we love to stay in our comfort zone, don't we? We love to do what we've always done because we feel comfortable there. And particularly, honestly, sometimes, Laurie, I speak to sales leaders and I'm just, I'm presenting you with an opportunity here. Just take a step in the water and try it. Do something a little different, because we know, you've told me that you've made a bad sales hire in the past. You don't want to make that mistake again, but actually you're going to go and do the same process that you did before.
Yeah. What?
We come up against that all the time. It's like, just try something different. Just see if this works. We know what you did before isn't working. You've got to do something. And they go back to the same thing again. It's so frustrating.
And people will, they'll find someone will be referred in through a relative or, someone on the team, and they like them so much. Like, oh, they're really great though. And they know about the industry. And I said, well, invite them to your holiday party then. But, that's not the basis for hiring someone. You need to hire someone that has the skills that you need to be successful. And sales is different. If I could leave everyone with, one piece of advice, is don't hire sales team members, particularly sales reps, SDRs, BDRs, account executives, anyone that's responsible for adding revenue, and sales managers who are going to manage those folks. Don't hire them the same way you hire other people, because you have to be able to you need people that can deal with rejection. You need people that can keep their focus. You need people that can be comfortable talking about money, all sorts of things like that, that not people in other roles just don't have to think about. So it's a special process. And if you do it right, it's highly successful.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really interesting what you say, and that if you do it right, and the thing is, the stats back up what we're doing is wrong. The predictive effectiveness of the tools that we currently use, whether it's CVs, whether it's by referrals, hiring in, so you're paid, to bring in another mate.
Yeah.
All of these, resumes, interviews, it's all around about 20% in terms of predictive effectiveness. 20% is really poor. So
Really.
even if they're referred in, even if they've got a fantastic CV, it's 1 in 5 percentage that you're actually going to get it right using those tools. But these are the tools that we're using all the time. There's got to be another way.
And people who are hiring need to think about what the cost is to them to hire the wrong candidate. I want you to think about not just their salary, not just the benefits together. I mean, right there, we're over 6 figures. But I want you to think about the missed opportunities in the territory or wherever it would be that that person is selling, and the ramp up time. They need time to ramp up. Then you have a sales cycle. You need to include the time for that sales cycle. For the wrong person, let's say you invested 6, 8, 12 months with the wrong candidate. Now you got to start over. I mean, it in some situations, it's $1 million proposition. Let's just say it's 6 figures. That's a lot of money to keep throwing out, especially those companies that say, we're going to bring in 5 people because we figure 2 will stay, 2 will work out.
And we heard this recently, didn't we, Laurie?
Yeah, we hear it. Yeah, we hear
Yeah.
this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And you don't have to do that. Hire the right person from the start.
Yeah.
And find out in advance whether they're going to be a good fit or not.
And to highlight this, I don't know if I often tell this in my keynotes, the story of MetLife. They were hiring in 5,000 salespeople a year, and the training cost over a 2-year period was 30,000. Now, 50% of those salespeople quit within the first year. So, about 75 million walked out the door. And then within the 4 years, 4,000 out of that 5,000, the original 5,000 had left. Wow. So, just in terms of the training costs, we're talking millions and millions, 150 million. It's absolutely nuts. And we're not even talking about the opportunity costs, as you've just mentioned, the accounts that you upset, the accounts that leave you. What about the repercussions within the team as well? That is a massive cost. It's really undermines other people in the team. The focus of the managers goes on to this person, and it's the talk. I remember they in a sales team, somebody was on holiday, and all of these things, these stories that we hear. It took about 2 years to get rid of them, and that was a real burden on the rest of the team during that time. So you're absolutely right. And the thing is, the MetLife example was over 30 years ago. We're talking about the same things now.
Yeah, that's what's shocking about our industry, is how slow things are to change, and how for years, we've promoted top salespeople to manager when there's no idea whether someone actually has the leadership qualities that a sales manager needs to be successful. And whether one of the biggest things is whether they'll hold people accountable. Because if they don't do that and they just give in because they want to make friends with all their teammates, they care more about being friends and being liked than they care about getting the job done. And so, it's time to really think about some of these things if you've been unsuccessful, and to know that it's not magic, it's not luck, it's not roll of the dice kind of a thing. There is actually science behind a process to do this, and I think it's a game changer from a training standpoint. Now, when someone comes to me and says our team needs help with closing, well, maybe they do, but maybe they're just not all the right people that are able to close deals, bring deals to closure. So I'm going to take a step back every time and say, let's start first with, like you would at a doctor, and assess where things are at and evaluate the team, and then we'll coach, train, and consult on top of that. That's where you need to go start. My dad was a pharmacist, but like a doctor, and prescribe first. Don't just say, oh, I think you have a broken arm, Janice, you need to go get this done. It's like, let's do an x-ray.
Yeah, absolutely. And our good friend Andy Miller that talks about MRIs, getting an MRI on your sales
Right.
team first before you prescribe, before you diagnose, before you prescribe. And it reminds me, the reason why I started looking around for a better way of doing things. Scale Your Sales is very much about sales strategies, but looking at your whole operation from the customer's point of view, giving them what they want, removing the barriers, and really being customer centric in the sales, in really, rather than talking about the sales process, talk about the buying process. And that's what you have within a sales team, a clear understanding of who your buyers are and the process, and removing all the barriers. So being really customer centric. But when I was going into organizations and implementing all of these strategies, and it was good to go, the thing that would hold the progress back was that there were the wrong people, some of them, in the wrong seats, and doing the wrong thing and not following a methodology. So I thought, I need to take a step back and really look at who we have in the team and get that aligned first of all, before we can go full steam ahead on these amazing strategies and being customer focused. Because unless you get that foundation right, you're going to progress, but you're going to progress at a stalled pace, really. So yeah, I'm absolutely with you.
Yeah, and another thing is that, what if when you started in sales, when I started in sales, what if you had a roadmap that showed you where your strong areas were, and then areas that you weren't as strong in and that you could improve upon? I mean, if I ever worked for a company that did that for me, I don't even know what I would do, because we never had any idea about, we only knew what we thought our strengths were. And that's very subjective, and some of us are not as good at really knowing our own strengths. And so to have a roadmap, so that when my manager coached me, we'd actually have a progression of topics to discuss over time, rather than, what deals are you going to close today, Janice? How are things looking? It's almost end of the month, or it just was end of the month. New month, what are you going to do? So we need more than that. This isn't about pipeline projection. This is about developing the people on your team into stronger leaders. And when you hire in, knowing what people's strengths are and where they're not as strong, you can put a plan of action together and give them a map on how to progress. We're going to start here, and we're going to go here, and we're going to go here. And that's one of the best gifts that a leader, company leadership, can do for anyone in sales or a manager.
I think you're right. It certainly is a gift, and it's looking at it in exactly that way, and having all of your team accountable. But it's not by the manager's whim, and then when a manager changes, the whim changes. It's really about, this is your own personal path to be the optimum salesperson you could be, and you take ownership of that, and you have the manager that helps you to coach you through that. So yeah, I love that. I love that. What about assessments? What things about assessments would you consider from not only a candidate of hiring, but also in terms of the sales team, the individuals? What are the particular things that you think are really important?
In terms of the skills, the core
Well, the
competencies.
type of assessments, really, because we talked about there are some assessments that will improve sales performance, and there's others that won't.
Yeah.
So, what are the kind of particular things that sales leaders need to look for that will give them that predictive success?
Well, the tool is just a tool, and we need a process around it. So the process that we use at Score More Sales will help identify someone's will to be successful. And will includes desire, commitment, outlook, responsibility, and motivation. So those are 5 things that we need to know about a potential candidate coming into our company. And then we need to know how they will deal with rejection, what they're thinking in their heads. Are they supporting themselves with the beliefs that they have in their heads? Can they talk about money? Are they focused on the present? Can they stay in the moment? Do they need someone's approval, or do they not need approval? Those are really important things. And then the rest are like tactical skills, like consultative selling and selling value. Now those can be taught. So from that standpoint, and leaders, in my opinion, my very strong opinion, and many people that I know feel the same way, that a sales manager needs to know these sales skills as well, because salespeople just don't respect sales managers that don't understand where they're coming from. And that's typically, that's part of the reason why we will bring managers in that have been in sales, because they have a respect for what the reps are doing. It's also why we promote, probably wrongly so, we promote too many top sellers into manager, but they have that understanding of what selling is to be effective.
But what we do have is we have the ability, so there's the assessment in terms of hiring in the right people, but there's an assessment in terms of the existing sales team assessing, are they in the right seat? Should they be in sales and so forth? So it's assessing. Right. But also you've got your managers as well. What skill set do they have? What do they need? Where the gaps are? But your leader as well. So if you're as you've just mentioned about, we tend to recruit from within, but you want to know you're recruiting the right people with the right tool set and understand what the gaps are. So the assessment will do that at all levels, even sales support as well. This is why you get a fully aligned operation. It's not just a sales team, it's the whole operation is
anyone
aligned.
Touching sales, anyone that's customer facing, that's doing upselling, cross-selling, renewals, all those things. Those people, we want to find out their sales DNA, basically.
Yeah.
So that's very true.
So we're running out of time, and hopefully you've enjoyed
already.
Yeah, I know this discussion, but we've got another one on the 29th, haven't we, Laurie?
Yes.
Another discussion. We love to hear from you, so please do. We often get loads of comments after the live sessions when people listen to the recording. I do always go back and look at them, but connect with myself and Laurie. The next session that I have coming up is on the 13th. And that is with Andy Champion. And we're going to be talking about people-centric leadership. And so that's already up. Please do join me. But in terms of this session, hopefully we've answered all of your questions. Please do connect with us. And I would like to thank you all for joining us in this discussion, and see you at the next one on the 29th or the 13th.